let's just go with questions first.
Okay, sir, were you watching inside? Did you hear Governor Hobbs' remarks?
I did.
Okay, could you address what she said toward the end? One, she called you out for supporting the January 6th protesters.
Well, what she said is that I stood outside a D.C. jail to greet J6ers who'd received a pardon. That's what she said. That is an absolute lie. It is a fabrication. It's about as nutty as I've heard from her this campaign.
Did you
No.
support the January 6th protesters?
No.
You did not?
No.
Did you support the pardon the president gave them?
I never made comment on the pardon. Some of them deserved it, some of them didn't. But that was his decision to make, not mine. Yeah.
Give you the opportunity to respond to allegations that you killed a bill in 2013 that would have stopped the FLDS. You're calling it a cult in Colorado City where young girls are being married and raped under the guise of religion. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I know that you're misstating even the allegation against me.
What do you know about that?
The allegation against me is that I killed a bill that would have decertified that police office, that police force. All I can tell you right now is that even as we stand here at this police event, the Fraternal Order of Police opposed that bill, and that bill never came to a vote.
You didn't know what was going on.
No, I was the Senate president. I knew what was going on.
I mean about the FLDS, marrying up the young girls who were underage.
We heard bits and pieces of it. It was also an investigation by the feds at the time. So we're ready to move on.
Rita, you got anything?
Congressman, can you address a little bit some of the specific items you mentioned, of course, the border task force?
Yeah.
That task force, wasn't doing a lot of work on the border. Public records have shown that most of the cases that they worked on weren't even troopers associated with that task force.
Weren't even associated with it? Oh, okay. Okay.
Most of the drug cases that were credited to that task force were actually done by other troopers. What would you do differently?
Well, I have brought more members of Congress to the border than any other person in Congress. I've brought more than 60. I'm considered one of the most knowledgeable on the border. What I think has to happen, by the way, this governor who's telling you how great she was on the border, she supported Biden's open border. She took down Governor Ducey's container barriers, and then she actually defunded the Border Security Strike Force. To make the Border Security Strike Force work, you actually have to have a leader who's involved. I will appoint a border czar who can help coordinate work on the border with sheriffs, local law enforcement, working with federal law enforcement, working with state troopers, and make sure that we're also working with the prosecutions, because like in Cochise County, where they have actually been using state law to prosecute these people who are coming across, they have, I believe it's 100% conviction rate. Once we get going there, we need to make sure that you have the back end where you're actually prosecuting the cases as well.
Stacy, go ahead. We'll go Stacy and Al.
On the border containers, I mean, she took those down, but Governor Ducey was told to take those down by a court. So are you saying you would put them back up? Why shouldn't she take them down?
Look, there's now, thanks to Donald Trump, you actually have a real fence there now. And so that's what we should be doing. We should make sure that we have the real fencing there.
Okay,
My point is simple. I think it's disingenuous of her to say that she was strong on the border. I think it'd be disingenuous for any of you who know what she was saying at the time and her actions with regard to the border security. They were weak, they were tepid, and they were not committed to actually border security. So.
One more, and I'm sorry if
Yeah.
my colleagues in the press corps asked you this already, but the question that was asked about balancing law enforcement and privacy concerns, I didn't hear a clear position from you on flock cameras.
Yes, I specifically mentioned flock cameras,
I know you did, but what should the state do in regards to flock cameras?
Well, the flock cameras, we are seeing an overwhelming rejection of flock cameras, and the state will probably have to step in and say, we're not going to have flock cameras. And then you let the local jurisdictions handle some of the other stuff. But here's the deal. Flock cameras have been abused already. Flock cameras have now proudly announce that you can actually use their software to actually link that cell phone, for instance, with your license plate. That is a gross violation, in my opinion, of a free society where people expect to be able to have some measure of privacy without having their every move tracked. And I think that's my position on that.
So Elvia right there.
On border security,
Yeah.
the president has said, and I believe you have said as well, that is the most secure border ever. So why would you need a border star if it's already secured? And would you work with the Trump administration to deport immigrants here in Arizona?
So first part, it is the most secure border in my lifetime for sure. And it is, the border security is manageable. It's not completely stopped. There are two places along the southwest border where you have the most human trafficking and drug trafficking. They're in our state. I've been down to those locations numerous times. I've taken members of Congress. I've actually taken media with me down there as well. And that's where the porousness on our border is. And so we have to stop that, in my position. And quite frankly, we would work with the federal law enforcement to help secure that border.
And on helping the Trump administration deport immigrants here in Arizona?
I'm not sure what you're getting, because that's a federal function. If you mean would we enforce 287G status? Yes, 287G status works. And I would also suggest that if you have a criminal illegal alien that is being held with the proper documentation, it would be a mistake for local law enforcement to release them back into the community.
So we're going to go last two, Univision and Fox
Yeah.
10.
Hey, how's it going? Hector with Univision. Thank you
Yeah,
for being here.
yeah.
It's very similar to what she asked.
Yeah.
We heard about your perspective at the border, but we've also covered a lot of ICE arrests. People
Yes.
possibly running from ICE, others not necessarily. What's your take on that? And is that going to change? Are you going to maybe increase those operations? If you even have a say on that, right? But what's your take overall on everything that we've been seeing here in the city?
Well, the governor doesn't have much control over what ICE does with its policy other than to communicate. And what I've communicated to the secretary and ICE itself is, so I support you, I support what you're doing. I would prefer that we have cooperation so that if you have a criminal alien who is in detention, it's better to actually transfer them to the feds at that point, because it's safer for that individual who's been arrested, it's safer for the community, and it's safer for the officers/agents. That's what I would prefer to see happen. That's what I think is happening. That's what you saw in LA, for instance. They had that situation. The other aspect is they are focused right now on criminal illegal aliens, not beyond just entering the country illegally. That's what they're focused on. But if there is somebody who's with someone who has a warrant against them that is also illegal, they are obligated under federal law to make that arrest. So,
Last question here to Fox 10.
yeah.
So last month you were part of a letter sent to FEMA asking them a ton of questions about flood victim funding here in Arizona,
Yeah.
much needed funding.
Yeah.
That deadline has come and passed now. Can you share with us if they were able to answer those questions, and if not, what you're doing to get the money for those flood victims?
They've answered some of our questions. They've actually denied the claims thus far. So we're going to keep pushing and see what we can do to get further answers and see how we can make it work.
Congressman, your vote on the 2005 spousal rape bill, you voted against raising the penalty for that to equal the penalty for other forms of sexual assault. Why did you vote no on that?
Well, thanks for asking that question, Bram. I think I've done probably 25,000 votes since then, and that particular vote, we know that there was already enhancers, there was already punishments that would be commensurate with a typical rape, that it was a charging decision on the part of the prosecutor. And so that's what I said at the time, I believe, and that's where I've been. But
Do you believe there's such a thing as spousal rape, that a husband can be charged with raping his wife?
Of course. Yeah. Can you tell me how many charges of spousal rape have we had?
No, I can't. But why does I can't? But why does that matter?
Well, I'm just wondering if it's been enforced. I mean, you're the one asking me a question from ancient days, so I thought, well, maybe.
I'm asking a question about a vote.
Right, Bram, and I'm asking, can you explain the efficacy of that bill? And I can't, and I don't know if you can. But what I can tell you is, I have a strong record on protecting women and children. I have the Sea Safe bill. I'm a leader on anti-human trafficking and sex trafficking in the United States Congress. I lead that committee, and I think the reality is, Bram, I've proven time and time again that I'm going to defend women and children. So,
Thanks you, everyone. Appreciate it. Thank you, sir. We'll have you go this. Thank you.